We were discussing, Grant, around your role with Birmingham in terms of sort of being quite heavily involved in those self-assessments and sort of mock inspections. So is there particular reflections or challenges that you guys found at Birmingham when going through that sort of pre-inspection grading process?
Our initial self-assessment was in probably September 23. That one was a very ad hoc internal self-assessment just based on the consumer standards. We didn't really have any great guidance in terms of what an inspection would look like at that time. So it was just kind of trying to assess all of the specific expectations. Where do we think we are against each of those? And then what can we do to improve them? Then we had another self-assessment last year, which was a bit more assisted by Campbell Tickell. And obviously that was a bit more informed by the gradings that had started coming through. And then we'll be having a proper in inverted commas mock inspection from Campbell Tickell later on this year. The two that we've conducted were very different because the first one, like I said, we didn't really know what we were doing. Specifically, it was more of a fact finding and an evidence gathering exercise, really, just to see what have we got against these standards and do we think that we're compliant. Last year we had a bit more of an idea of actually what does the inspection look like and where are we going. With the internal assessments, I think there's a little bit of a risk of bias. I think maybe in some areas we probably overestimated our readiness and maybe underestimated weaknesses. And I think the good thing with the mock inspection is it highlights where there's a gap between internal perceptions of our kind of preparedness and actually, although it's not an external evaluation, it's that idea of, we're a separate team, we're coming in, we're having a look at things, and we can see where what services think is preparedness isn't going to make it. There's operational blind spots that we picked up, so inefficiencies and compliance gaps. Obviously, with the S&Q standard, it's very easy because it's compliance or not to achieve, whereas with other ones, they're a little bit more esoteric. So until you really start looking at the data and drilling down, it's difficult sometimes to pick up on what those operational inefficiencies are. And I think in some areas, the reflection is that we've got some good practice. There are pockets of things happening. Not everything's bad. We don't think we're a C4, but there are certainly areas where we're much more prepared than others. And it's about then how do we maintain those good standards and bring the other areas up to it. With challenges, I think resistance to change is one of the big ones that we've experienced. Some of the elements, it's minor tweaks. It's maybe a policy needs refreshing or something, just an approach just needs to be changed a little bit. Some areas there's a lot more large-scale change needed, and that can be difficult operationally, particularly where we're having to maybe procure new systems to implement changes. There's a kind of financial, given Birmingham situation, and an operational resistance to some of those. Time constraints. We didn't do our mock inspections or our self-assessments over the same time period. We gave ourselves a few weeks to do them, but even doing it that way, going out and gathering evidence from service areas, there was a lot of, we don't have time to keep coming back to you with evidence. So it's about kind of making sure that you're clear on what you're doing and how long it's going to take and what evidence you're going to be asking for. And then I think implementing the feedback. So translating those results once we'd been out and said, here's the specific expectations, here's the evidence we've got, now what do we do with it? How do we sort of take that forward now that we know where we think we're good, where we're not, and having a kind of robust. What we've done is initialise a sort of task and finish group against each of the separate consumer standards, chaired by someone from a different service area with the right people in the room, and try to take them forward that way rather than trying to take the whole thing on as one piece. You've got to break it down because it is so big.